Welcome, my constant reader friends. I'm Tad, and this is Tad Read Books and Stuff. All right, so let me get it out of the way. It's still freezing cold in Florida. No, it's not freezing, of course, but it's pretty cold for Central Florida. And I have to wear a toque again to keep my bald head nice and warm. So you know, my Gryffindor hat. So I had to match it with a Gryffindor t-shirt. This might be blasphemy because I'm not a Gryffindor. I'm actually a Hufflepuff. But lo and behold, I don't own a Hufflepuff toque. I don't own a Hufflepuff t-shirt. For some reason, it's Gryffindor. Probably because that's easy to find and easy to purchase. All right, so as we know, I started a trio for Lute by R.A. MacAvoy. Haven't gotten too far, about halfway through the first book, which is Damiano. It's going pretty good. I'm not going to talk about it right here, right now, but so far, so good. Also, I have just started Stone of Farwell. This is the second book in Tad Williams' Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn trilogy, which actually now has 7 novels, but this was the original trilogy. This is the second book in that trilogy. I've read it several times before. This time I'm actually listening to it. So we'll see how that goes. Now this is a long novel, so it's going to take me a little while to listen to that. Also, I've just started reading The 12 by J. Michael Straczynski. We talked about this last week. Just started reading that as well. Haven't gotten very far at all. Now, where are we? So, the first thing that I finished reading this month was Stranger Things Into the Fire. Of course, a graphic novel. It's a collection of different individual comics. What can I say about this? The one thing that I most appreciate about all of the Stranger Things novels and graphic novels is the continuity. They all fit well together. They all expand on the Stranger Things universe, which I love. I think it's fun. I love the 80s vibe of it and everything. I'm a kid of the 80s, of course. But I will have to say that this is probably the weakest one that I've read. It really didn't advance the storyline, the plots, the world very much at all. It does go into some of the other children that escaped from the laboratory and their trials and tribulations and how they're dealing with a lot of their powers. Sometimes it affects them mentally or physically, and so it carries on with that, but it didn't do a heck of a lot for me. I didn't even really particularly enjoy the artwork even. There's not a lot that I liked. I mean, this is kind of cool, I guess, this portion here. But there's not a lot of that. It's few and far between. I don't know. Not my favorite Stranger Things that I've read. What else did I read? Well, I did finish Malice. Now, we talked about this a little bit last week, but I hadn't finished the novel. I filmed on January 30th last week, and I finished the book on January 31st. And of course, what I was doing was listening to it. It took me a little while to listen to it, but man, let's just start off by saying I love this book. It was great. Now, this is Malice by John Gwynn. He now has, I believe, 8 books out, and another one is going to be coming out in April, I believe. And this Malice is the first book in the Faithful and the Fallen series, which is a total of 4 books. I just loved it. Now, I know I'm late to this. It was published back December 6th, 2012. So I'm almost 10 years behind the curve here. I'm finally reading this book, but I still loved it. The setting, of course, is classic fantasy, pretty much good versus evil, or in this case, it's the black sun rising. So there's this prophecy that the black sun is going to rise and he's going to basically take over the world, and it's not going to be good. It's evil. Of course, who is going to save the world? Well, the bright star. Who is the bright star and who is the black sun? This is what we have to find out. I think towards the end of the novel, you start to figure out pretty much where this is going. The plot is developing very well in this book. It was a little slow to begin with, but towards the end, it really, amped up, and you can see where it's going. I'm pretty sure. I did like the character development in this book. He does take enough time with each character to see some type of growth with these characters and how they fit in this universe and this story and where they're going to hopefully ultimately end up. So I like that. I like the character development. The magic system isn't huge in this novel. I've heard some complaints about that, but it is the first novel. There is magic, of course, in the universe, but it's not really defined. And I know a lot of people really like their strictly defined magic, but I thought it was fine so far in this book. There are definitely classic fantasy tropes in this novel. You've got giants, you've got magic users, you've got drakes, you've got giant white worms. You've got it all in here. I really liked it. There's dire wolves basically in it. So that was fun. Now, what didn't I like about the book? Well, not a lot. I thought the pacing was good, especially for a first book by an author. I thought it was pretty good. I thought the fighting scenes were good. It did slow down in some areas in the middle of the book. Some people will say it was kind of slow at the beginning. I didn't, because I enjoy getting into a new world and meeting the new characters. So that was fine. It did drag a little bit in the middle, but then at the end it really amped up, and it was very fun. Very fun read, which is my main thing. I want to be entertained when I'm reading. So loved it. I will be getting the second novel is Valor. I will be getting that and listening to that as well. I haven't got it yet because of some other things that I have to listen to, but I really want to continue with this series pretty quickly if I can. So that's that. Now, also what happened. In my last video, I wasn't sure what I was going to listen to next. And I was sitting in my living room looking at my Stephen King bookshelf and realizing that I'm a little behind in my Stephen King reading. So I grabbed The Institute and I got it on Audible and listened to it. This I flew through. I listened to this just this past week, like in 4 days. 19 hours or so of listening. Not huge for some novels, but I listened to this. Now, I liked it. My favorite author, as I've said, and I will continue to say forever, is Stephen King. Some of his novels are hit and miss with me, and we'll talk about those maybe at another time. But this novel, I'm not going to say it's his best novel ever. Some people do. Some people really love this novel. Some people really hate it. I'm going to say it's a standard Stephen King novel. There's something about his writing that just I enjoy, I love. It's not, beautiful prose by any means, but the way he writes, he just sucks you into his stories. The way he writes characters. Again, this novel starts out with Tim Jameson. Tim Jameson is an ex-cop. You'll find out why he's an ex-cop. But it starts out with him on an airplane in Tampa, Florida, which is just down the road from me. And they have somebody important that has to get on the plane, and they're offering people money and free trips if they take the offer to give up their seat for this important person. And eventually Tim does that. We don't know why. He doesn't really know why. It's just almost like something is telling him to do this. He gets off the plane, he starts hitchhiking to New York. Initially this plane was going to New York. I don't have to get into this a lot, but it starts with Tim. He ends up in this small town in South Carolina, and he stops there. Next, it jumps. So that you read that in a couple chapters, boom, his story's over, and it jumps to Luke Ellis. Now, Luke Ellis is a 12-year-old boy. He lives in Minneapolis, and he's a freaking genius. He is in a special school for gifted children, and he's only 12 years old, and he's already been accepted to 2 prestigious colleges. But what happens is one night, in the middle of the night, he gets kidnapped. Unbeknownst to him, his parents get killed while he's being kidnapped, and he wakes up. They kind of knock him out with some spray, and he wakes up in the Institute. Now, the Institute, as we learn, is for children that have special abilities. They call them TK, or for telekinetic, or TP. They have telepathy. So these kids basically are kidnapped all over and brought to this institute, and they're tested on very cruelly. Some heinous treatment of these little kids by really nasty adults, of course. But you see Luke develop friendships while he's in this institute, and they'll help each other get through these tests, which basically is geared to hopefully enhance their abilities. So they're in the front half of this institute. After a certain period of time, a certain amount of testing, they get sent to the back half, and that's where no one's ever seen of again, and they're all afraid. They don't want to do that. But anyways, so suffice it to say, of course, eventually it blends in, and you see Tim again, and how he interacts with this story and these characters. I'm not going to go into it a lot, but I liked it. It's just the plot was there. There were some things. Let's talk about things like I didn't like. If this place is kidnapping kids and locking them in, and they're trying to tell them this is for the good of the world, why do they give them laptops? They actually give the kids laptops. They can go online. Now, they restrict their access to different things because they don't want them looking at any news reports and seeing that their parents were killed or anything like that. But that just was a little ridiculous to me. If you're going to kidnap these kids and keep them in this facility, just don't even give them laptops. Why? Just, they're so mean to them. They're so heinous, and you know, why give them a laptop? They give them booze, or they make it available to them, cigarettes. But I can understand that kind of trying to get the kids, you know, to be more pliable. But giving them the laptop, I didn't understand that. Now, let's just talk about the story. I do have a little problem with the story. So, what basic, does this sound familiar? Yes. Oh my goodness. Could it be the same thing as Stranger Things? A facility for kids with special powers that they're doing tests on, they're treating horribly, they're going to try to take advantage of for whatever nefarious reason. Yeah, this is pretty much the same thing. What I have a problem with is every interview that I've seen that has to do with any of the creators of Stranger Things, they talk about certain influences. They have the influence of the 80s. They have the influence of Dungeons and Dragons, and they're very influenced by Stephen King. They talk about it in every interview, everything I read. They give credit where credit is due. Stephen King, on the other hand, I have not seen any interview where he said, oh yeah, I got this idea from watching Stranger Things. This novel was published, The Institute was published in 2019. Of course, Stranger Things came out 2016. He doesn't say that. Now, I know there's probably thousands of stories like this, a lot of YA stories. X-Men is similar, a school for gifted children or whatever. But this is an institute where they really hurt kids by running tests to make their abilities increase, which is exactly what has happened in Stranger Things. I just wish he would say, boy, give some credit to Stranger Things. They give credit to him, why doesn't he? And I've seen that in a lot of Stephen King stuff. He will write a story that's very similar to many other stories. He does it his way, which I love. They're great. In every interview, somebody asks him, where did you get the idea to do this? And he says, well, I was sitting around one day and I just thought, just say you saw a TV show and you thought, well, let me do it my way or something. I don't know. Maybe I should get down off my high horse. I enjoyed the book. It flew by. Easy reading, easy listening to, and I'm glad that I definitely read it. Not on my top 10 list, but it's definitely not on my bottom 10 list either. So if you are a constant reader of Stephen King and you haven't read this book, definitely read it. You're going to enjoy it. I think it was really well done. I'm not going to go into it much more, but that's it. So right now, again, we're listening to Tad Williams. We're reading R.A. MacAvoy. That's going to take some time, so that will leave me the ability to make some other content for the channel, which I'm looking forward to. Hopefully you are looking forward to it as well. I just want to say thank you for watching my show. Please like if you can. Please subscribe if you can. That will help me out. Leave comments. I love talking to people that leave comments. Anyways, peace out.